All right. Finally, I could play 007 First Light. Wait a minute. IO Interactive clearly did their homework for this one. I'm not ready yet. I gotta do my homework first. Okay, now I'm ready. Yes, 007 First Light is finally here, and I have been addicted. I've been anticipating and slightly worried about this game since the first trailer back in 2020. Not only is this the first major Bond game release in 14 years, and the less said about 007 Legends, the better, but the franchise has been through some tumultuous times behind the scenes. From Amazon buying MGM Studios, to the Broccoli family seeming to have to hand the reins of their iron grip creative control over the license over to the Bezos empire, development could not have been easy. But I did what any idiot with no sense of time management would do. I consumed all the original novels, a bunch of movies and games, just so I could properly experience this one. Was all that research worth it? Let's dive in. Oh, and seeing that this is a heavily story-driven game, consider this your spoiler warning. So if you want to click off this video and come back, feel free to. But first, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel for any future videos. With that, let's get into it. The game kicks off with a cheeky homage to GoldenEye Rogue Agent, dropping Bond into a helicopter crash right out the gate. Oh, it just never fucking ends with this one. Thankfully, he survives, and it turns out this is a military training mission at a secret MI6 test site. We immediately see a very different Bond here than we're used to. Instead of a seasoned veteran, this is a young, inexperienced agent. In a brilliant nod to the original Fleming novels that the movies never bothered to adapt, Bond actually gets his signature cheek scar right here in the opening crash. The fresh take on the character brings a completely refreshing narrative and sets the tone for the game, which feels appropriately scrappy and raw for a rookie, and actor Patrick Gibson nails his performance as Bond right off the bat. Naturally, Bond goes against orders, blows up the site, destroying the device he was supposed to recover, and thus thrusts us into a killer original title sequence by Lana Del Rey. A month later, Bond is officially recruited into MI6 and sent to Malta for training under former 00, John Greenway, who immediately makes it clear he cannot stand Bond. It's here we meet fellow recruits Monroe and Cressida, and where the game teaches you the ropes. Naturally, stealth is your most valuable weapon, and to any Hitman fan, this is going to feel incredibly familiar. You're constantly eavesdropping on oblivious NPCs who, let's be honest, have some serious tunnel vision to find different infiltration methods. It's incredibly rewarding to build up your instinct meter and bluff your way out of getting caught, dropping fun little quips in the process.
Hey, what are you doing? Oh, hey, listen, Greenway's birthday's coming up and we're throwing him a little thing. Just spreading the word. Mind if I pass?
Okay, go ahead.
Cheers.
But when things inevitably go loud, you experience the absolute highlight of the game, the hand-to-hand combat. IO hired Rocksteady's former combat architect, and it shows. For the first time since the Arkham games, The rhythm brawling style feels genuinely evolved and not just reiterated upon. On top of the standard punches, kicks, and parries, you're grabbing enemies, busting their heads into wine shelves, or judo chopping them in the throat without alerting the guy 10 feet away. It's chaotic, brutal, and just cartoony enough that throwing a henchman into an electrical box reveals his skeleton for a brief moment. Once training wraps up, we head to London to meet with M, and we are introduced to Thea, a second-generation quantum supercomputer developed by Web Industries. Think of Thea like the precog system from Minority Report or Eagle Eye. Its entire job is to predict threats before they happen so MI6 can intervene. It's also here in London that IO Interactive really starts laying the foundation for their new universe. We're introduced to the supporting cast of M, Moneypenny, and Q. And speaking of Q, we finally get the return of classic gadgets. That's right, gone are the days where Bond's smartphone was his only tool. We get real, tangible gadgets again, starting with the Q lens and the Q watch, a modified Omega Seamaster chronograph. Omega actually made a real-life special edition of this watch for the game's launch that I desperately wish that I could afford. In-game, this watch is your best friend. It's packed with tools that actively change how you approach stealth. You can hack electronic devices for a quick distraction, use the laser strap to melt locks or temporarily blind enemies, or even deploy a dart that makes NPCs sick so that they abandon their post. It adds a layer of puzzle solving to the infiltration. Bond is sent back to Malta for advanced training, but he doesn't get to play with his new toys for very long, as advanced training is immediately cut short when former rogue agent 009 resurfaces, claiming that he has evidence of a massive conspiracy and that he's willing to deliver it for a pardon. However, he'll only speak to Greenway, the man directly involved in the operation that branded 009 a traitor over a decade ago, shutting down the 00 program with it, Operation Nightfall. To track him down, Bond and the other recruits go undercover at a hotel in Slovakia, but things quickly go sideways. Bond spots a suspicious bellhop, gives chase, and meets a woman claiming to work for French intelligence, which, as an American, I feel obliged to say, is a complete myth. The hotel is bombed by the Murtaugh twins, a pair of elite assassins, killing Monroe and injuring Cressida. This forces Bond to chase 009 to a heavily guarded airfield where we get our first taste of driving and the game's gunplay. We chase 009 in a 1970 Aston Martin DBS, and this is the first part of the gameplay that isn't the best. While the controls feel solid and the visual spectacle of the chase is great, the driving doesn't feel as good as I would have liked. These sections can feel too scripted and limited, not giving you much freedom for the sake of letting the character's dialogue play through properly. But I did play this just after Forza Horizon 6, so I could just be used to that game's driving and unfairly comparing it like a jackass. After the chase is where the game rips off the stealth band-aid and slaps you with a license to kill and forces you to engage with the gunplay. And honestly, it's surprisingly good. It's nothing groundbreaking, but it's leagues better than the shooting mechanics in Hitman. Firefights here are actually a viable and satisfying way to clear a room. You've got a focus ability that burns your instinct meter to slow down time while you aim, which makes you feel more like an absolute action star when you're cornered. But straight on shooting is just one piece of the puzzle. The real fun is using your weapons and gadgets to manipulate the environment. You can shoot red pipes or those classic red exploding barrels to take out a group of henchmen, or use tools like smoke by blowing up blue pipes to hide in. This is a great system that rewards you for scanning the room before you start pulling the trigger. It keeps the pacing high and ensures that you never feel like a sitting duck. Bond barely manages to plant a tracker before his target disappears again, and at the funeral for the agents, Bond meets Sir Nicholas Webb, head of Web Industries and the creator of Thea.
People really are capable of the most extraordinary things. I spend so much time around machines, I sometimes forget. No rest for the wicked.
Well, talk about telegraphing your villain. Yeah, the game isn't exactly subtle with its ominous foreshadowing here. But we don't have time to dwell on Webb, because back at MI6, Bond and Greenway track 009 to Aleph, a massive ship graveyard in Mauritania controlled by local pirate king Bavma, played by Lenny Kravitz. The two track 009, but they're too late as he's already been killed. However, he left behind a trail of clues that reveal the truth. 009 wasn't the mastermind behind the Slovakia bombing, he was the target. Just as the pieces start falling into place, Bond and Greenway are ambushed by the same mercenary group from the airfield before being saved by Bavma. Back in London, one of the Murtaugh twins makes an attempt on Bond's life, which leads our rookie agent straight to the high society Webb Industries gala. Bond assumes that Webb is the next target, but after finally taking out the first twin in a cool Mr. Freeze-esque boss fight, the real twist drops. Webb isn't the target, he's the mastermind behind the entire conspiracy, and he's actively trying to wipe out both Bond and Greenway. While navigating the gala, Bond runs into our mystery woman, now going by Isola, and her date, Damien, who happens to be Nicholas Webb's son. After accepting a drink from a total stranger like an idiot, rookie mistake, but hey, we all have our alcoholic demons. Mine just happens to be old fashions and white girl music. Bond is drugged and wakes up captured next to Isola. The two manage to escape, allowing Bond to track down Greenway. After regrouping, the two agents make their way to Webb Industries to break into the company's data servers before the evidence can be wiped. And this mission highlights one of the strangest design choices in the game's movement and exploration. The game occasionally switches into more linear platforming and puzzle solving sections, but the bright tarp can feel a little intrusive. I mean, why is there a tarp draped over this pristine railing in a high-tech corporate office building when there's absolutely zero construction happening here? It does pull you out of these otherwise immaculate environments, but tarp-guided parkour aside, Isola happens to be breaking into the building at the exact same time, and she helps the pair hack the servers. It's here we get the big revelation: Thea, the perfect supercomputer, actually makes a ton of mistakes. And whenever it does, Webb sends Damien to clean up the mess and doctor the results to match the algorithm, including framing 009 during Operation Nightfall. Okay, quick question. If Webb has had all this incriminating data just stored on the servers, why has he not deleted it already? The game establishes that these incidents have been going on for at least a decade at this point. Is the crux of the story seriously as simple as Webb forgetting to delete his browser history? What kind of idiot CEO do you have to be to leave such critical evidence against yourself in such a... Oh, never mind, game. I retract my previous statement. After escaping Webb Industries, the pair are officially branded as traitors and domestic terrorists. Greenway, completely devastated by the realization that he's been tricked, walks away, leaving Bond to continue alone. M, obviously upset by the lack of hard evidence against Webb, sends Bond on an off-the-books mission to Vietnam to obtain undeniable proof and to stop Damien from taking out one of 3 potential targets. No, not you, Cobby Lame. The 3 targets include Ramon Hernandez, an international criminal, Ellis White, a rockstar eco-scientist dude bro, and Teresa Lorca, some boring biogeneticist chick who, god damn! I'm not just covering that thing up with my logo because I want my face there, but because I'm sure that if I don't, this video is getting taken down. Anyway, Damien obviously goes after Teresa because, well, let's be honest, who wouldn't? So Bond steps in, saves her, and finally takes out the second Murtaugh twin in a massive explosion. But the blast knocks Bond unconscious, allowing Damien to capture him. Facing an imminent death he hasn't seen since Blofeld, Bond is saved at the last second by Greenway, who returns just in time to catch a bullet for our rookie. With Greenway down, Bond is forced to take a one-on-one boss fight with Damien. One swift ass-kicking later, Bond kicks Damien off a cliff and drops a load of steel bars down on him, just for good measure. Yep, no body seen. I am sure 100% he's dead, definitely not coming back. Bond makes it back to Greenway just in time to say goodbye. The two share a genuinely sentimental moment before Greenway succumbs to his wounds, using his final words to beg Bond to not let this life change him. Back at MI6, Webb is leaking state secrets under the threat that more is to come if they don't grant him full immunity, which M is all but forced to comply with. Bond, obviously unsatisfied with letting a billionaire mastermind walk away scot-free, decides to actually go rogue. He teams up with Isola to track down Webb's mirror computer, Hyperion, located in a hidden facility in the Antarctic. The infiltration brings Bond face to face with Webb himself, but before Bond can act, Isola swoops in, shoots Webb dead. She then reveals her true colors, taking the Hyperion core for herself. After a quick chase, Bond manages to shoot the core and both of them are promptly arrested by MI6. While imprisoned, the game throws one final completely unhinged surprise at us. Damien survived! Who could have seen that coming? Apparently being stabbed directly in the eye, thrown off a cliff and crushed by steel bars is more of a mild inconvenience than a fatal injury. But hey, he's cool with it because now he's sporting some slick cybernetic upgrades. Damien attacks MI6 to steal Thea's core, stabbing Moneypenny for his troubles. This triggers the actual final boss fight, which is a bit anticlimactic if I'm being honest. Bond defeats Damien, for real this time, nearly killing himself in the process before being saved by Isola, who then proceeds to escape with Thea's core anyway, perfectly setting up the sequel. In the aftermath, we find ourselves at Greenway's funeral. M officially clears Bond of all charges and welcomes him into the 00 program. As a tribute to his fallen agents who didn't make it, Bond takes the designation of the 7th recruit, officially becoming 007. The game closes out with the iconic gun barrel sequence and the classic James Bond theme, bringing us right to the beginning of his legendary career. Because IO Interactive wiped the slate completely clean with an origin story, they had the ultimate creative freedom, the chance to build a James Bond entirely from scratch. And what makes Patrick Gibson's portrayal work so incredibly well here is that he isn't doing an impression of Connery, Brosnan, or Craig. He's making the character entirely his own. When we meet him, he isn't an untouchable, cold-blooded killing machine. He's young, he's brash, and his very first confirmed kill actually leaves him visibly shaken. It grounds him in a genuine sense of humanity before the legendary armor of the 00 status hardens around him. But the quintessential Bond DNA is still very much intact. He's quick to dismiss authority when his gut tells him otherwise, and naturally, he is an absolute magnet for the ladies. Seriously, the women in this game are down bad for him the second he walks into a room.
Yoga candy dead ahead. No need to ask me twice to do a downward dog.
Leave the man candy alone, Babs. This is not that kind of place.
It's whatever I want it to be, hun. I'm paying enough for it.
Ladies?
Man, I wish I had that kind of charisma. Unfortunately, I wear this helmet for a reason. Gibson strikes a miraculous balance here. His delivery during bluffs and post-fight quips has enough campy charm to satisfy old school fans, but when the fists or guns come out, he channels pure, devastating Daniel Craig brutality. It's no wonder the internet is actively campaigning for Gibson to take over the live-action movies. He proves that he has the exact leading man chops for the franchise. However, while Gibson is out here boldly forging his own path, the rest of the MI6 cast feels like they took the exact opposite approach. Don't get me wrong, the writing and acting for M, Moneypenny, and Q are all stellar, but unlike Bond, they are noticeably channeling past cinematic portrayals. Moneypenny feels like a direct continuation of Naomi Harris, Q is giving pure Desmond Llewellyn Brosnan era nostalgia, and M is heavily echoing Judi Dench. It creates a wonderful, warm sense of comfort, but it feels like a slight missed opportunity. When you have a completely fresh universe, you don't have to rely on long-term fans trusting a character just because their name tag says Moneypenny. IO had the perfect excuse to aggressively subvert our expectations, and I desperately wish that they had leaned into that. Imagine this. What if instead of introducing us to disposable new recruits like Monroe and Cressida, Bond's fellow rookie in the 00 program was a young Alec Trevelyan? Think about it. Longtime Bond fans would be squinting at Trevelyan just waiting for him to fake his death and pull the classic GoldenEye heel turn. It would have been the ultimate smokescreen. We'd be so distracted waiting for 006 to betray us that the actual villain's reveal would have probably caught us more off guard. Flipping the script on the audience like that would have been legendary. But while IO plays it a bit safe inside MI6, their long-term universe building centers entirely around our main love interest, Isola. She's masterfully written to echo the classic dangerous femme fatales of Golden Age Hollywood. You know from the jump that she's playing her own game, but Gibson and her voice actress Naomi Nakai share such fantastic vocal chemistry that you'll willingly let yourself get dragged into her mess anyway. More importantly, Anyone who knows their Bond lore can see the massive neon sign hanging over her head. Through Isola stealing Thea's core, IO Interactive isn't just setting up a basic sequel, they're laying the groundwork for Spectre, Blofeld's iconic global terrorist syndicate. IO has already proved that they know how to dig deep into the Fleming archives by giving Bond his novel-accurate cheek scar. So watching how they choose to adapt Blofeld and Spectre going forward, whether they lean into the campy volcano layers, Christoph Waltz's modern tactical web, or the gritty Cold War pages of the original books, is easily my most anticipated storyline in gaming right now. And in gaming, the main thing is gameplay. I've already talked about how the gadgets and the combat feel during the story, so let's take a step back and look at how these systems hold up as a complete gameplay loop. When it was announced that Hitman developers IO Interactive were taking a stab at the Bond franchise, it seemed like a match made in heaven. Bond games of the past have typically been standard shooters, but IO's strength has always been in social stealth and open-ended level design. Hitman has always been a unique franchise where you are going to fail a lot. It encourages you to learn routines, try new things, and replay levels constantly. But that trial and error can also discourage players who just want to feel like a badass spy without getting completely overwhelmed by options or getting punished with a massive firefight that the game was designed to have you avoid. So, with First Light, IO had to find a way to have the blockbuster mass appeal while maintaining the complex roots that they perfected over the past 26 years. To achieve this, they bumped up their headcount with talent from places like Crystal Dynamics, Ubisoft, and Rocksteady, and the end result is a seamless mix of IO's signature open-ended sandboxes with more traditional linear third-person action set pieces. It's also worth looking at how IO evolves this loop when the training wheels come off. Unlike standard action games where stealth just means crouching in tall grass until an eyeball icon disappears, First Light treats high security zones like living puzzles. You aren't just managing line of sight, you're managing your trespass status and the micro routines of guards who actually notice that you aren't where you're supposed to be, and standard bluffs won't work on all of them. What makes the sandbox truly shine is how it handles escalation. When a guard gets suspicious, the game doesn't just instantly trigger a psychic global alarm or slap you with a stupid mission failed screen. Instead, it creates a localized investigation phase, giving you a brilliant, tense window of pure improvisation. You're forced to think dynamically, use a hacked terminal to draw them away, slipping through a vent, or aggressively relocating before they establish a perimeter or catch you. It makes you feel like an actual master of espionage working under pressure. And if you play your cards right, that investigation or even a short confrontation can be contained so that you can maintain stealth. But when that improvisation runs out and fights inevitably break out, the mechanical shift is genuinely impressive. While I said that the gunplay here wasn't anything to write home about, I can't say that they didn't try and succeed in so many areas. The environmental traps and the slow-mo focus are all great, but the real effort here is the heavy tactical weapon feedback. There's a sharp, aggressive crack to your standard weapons that make every single headshot feel lethal. And it's forever satisfying to disarm a guard by shooting his gun away or shoot a dude's helmet off before putting one between his eyes. More importantly, the combat design actively punishes you for playing it like a static 2010 cover shooter. Late game enemy archetypes like heavily armored sweepers and aggressive grenade throwers are explicitly designed to flush you out of cover. And your extremely limited ammo supply ensures that you keep running and grabbing new weapons to keep going. You can't just sit behind a single wall and pick guys off. The game forces you to keep moving, perfectly marrying the movement, gunplay, and gadgets from the exploration segments directly into the middle of a live gunfight. Finally, let's take a look under the hood of those driving segments. While I already pointed out the invisible guardrails and the dialogue-heavy pacing, the root of the issue feels somewhat technical. IO Interactive built an immaculate, world-class game engine specifically engineered for those dense indoor crowds, intricate lighting, and precise foot traffic. Stretching that exact same engine to handle high-speed vehicular momentum and open road physics unfortunately lacks the weight and suspension simulation of dedicated racing games. The vehicles end up feeling a bit glued to the game's pace, relying heavily on scripting to keep the exploding mercenary jeeps artificially close. It functions totally fine as a cinematic, high-octane palate cleanser, but it ultimately leaves me wishing that the driving physics had a sort of depth that more dedicated racing games do. But once the credits roll on the main campaign, First Light points you towards Tac-Sim, which is essentially IO Interactive taking their freelancer and elusive target architecture from Hitman and adding a challenge mode on top of it and calling it a day. Conceptually, it's a great sandbox. You pick your loadout and take on bite-sized escalating challenge runs, clear a high security server room using only headshots, pull off an extraction without taking a single point of damage, stuff like that. It is the designated sweat mode for players who want to test the absolute upper limits of the game's mechanics, and I am not nearly good enough to pull this off, at least not without a few drinks beside me. It's also very clearly the life support system for the game's live service roadmap. Just like World of Assassination, this is where IO plans to keep the player base hooked with upcoming seasonal drops like the upcoming Bama mission. However, Tac-Sim houses what is arguably the most baffling design decision in the entire game. This is the only place you are allowed to use alternate outfits. That's right, if you shelled out the extra however many dollars for the premium edition, left a muted Twitch stream running in a forgotten browser tab for a few hours, or aggressively hunted down specially marked cans of Coca-Cola at your local grocery store, only in select regions mind you, you cannot wear those rewards in the story mode. Which brings us to the unavoidable, widely frustrating question, why? Why can't I take my unlocked golden pistol, my custom earbuds, or my tailored tuxedo back into the main story? Oh, right. Because the standard New Game Plus wasn't included at launch. It's currently sitting on a graphic designer's hard drive being held hostage for a future roadmap milestone. I'm sorry, but when did basic game replayability become a post-launch luxury? If I beat your multi-layered espionage simulator on the hardest difficulty, or just any difficulty, let me load back into the opening prologue dressed like a 1970s casino mogul carrying a solid gold sidearm. It's a victimless crime. Let me do it. Why are you holding out? Despite all that, at the end of the day, 007 First Light isn't just a fantastic game. It is, without a doubt, the absolute best James Bond game ever made. And look, I don't say that lightly. I grew up in the golden era of Nightfire and Agent Under Fire. Those are nostalgic, absolute peak tier gaming memories for me. But while First Light might not match those hyper fast, pure arcade action of the classic first person shooters from Rare, EA, or Activision, it achieves something much grander. Mind the cliche, but no other game in history has made you truly feel like James Bond the way this one does. IO Interactive's signature open-ended social infiltration, brilliantly blended with the high-stakes linear action, creates a definitive, multi-layered espionage experience we've literally never seen before. It's a masterclass in game design, and unfortunately, it's entirely possible we may never get an experience like this again. Since First Light hit shelves, the landscape behind the scenes has shifted drastically because Amazon has officially taken complete control over the 007 license. Now, let's be entirely clear. IO Interactive independently developed and published this masterpiece. It succeeded because a passionate, world-class studio was allowed to execute their exact vision without corporate mandates. My biggest hope going forward is that the suits at Amazon recognize why this game is a triumph. I need them to take a massive step back and strictly handle the distribution and publishing logistics. Keep your hands completely out of the kitchen, let IO do what they do best, and do not meddle with the sequel, at least not any more than you likely did here. I know ending a review on a cynical note about corporate ownership feels a bit sour, but while I am deeply skeptical of where the franchise's future goes from here, I am incredibly grateful for the fact that First Light exists right now. It's a phenomenal landmark experience for the Bond games, and honestly, with IO Interactive still actively supporting the game and dropping new live missions, I know I'm going to be diving back into the sandbox for a long time. But I want to know what you guys think. Have you played First Light yet? Do you think the suits at Amazon are inevitably going to fuck up the sequel? Drop your theories down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button, share it with a friend, and hit the subscribe button to help support the channel. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one. Bye, everybody.